Hey everyone, Blaze here. Welcome to the first edition of my reviews, series. It's not really a review series. Let's talk about a record of Lodoss War. The reason why this is just let's talk about and not a review is because I want it to be laid back. The reason I have never done reviews is because I don't have, one, the confidence, two, the enthusiasm to do a review that will take a lot of research and all that. I just want to watch something and talk about it with you guys. So that's what we're going to do. So over the last 2 days, well, actually, I finished it last night. Yeah, I watched the original 1990 to 1991 13 episode Madhouse OVA series called Record of Lodoss War, which is, I'm pretty sure, a revered classic, at least in the eyes of many fans, and that's at least Western fans that I've seen. That's probably in part due to it being one of the few anime, well, there were quite a lot obviously, but you know, in the 90s, anime not quite as big a thing as it is now in the West. So yeah, it was one of the few that did actually come over relatively quickly, and it's one of the few of a much higher standard than a lot of the OVAs that were getting picked up. So yeah, and it's also one of the longer ones. Obviously, at 13 episodes, it's the same length as a single core TV series. So, and each episode is about 25 minutes long, and it even has eye catch episode breaks in between and things. It's basically a TV series just uh, released as an OVA, and it's a pretty good one. Just quick summarize at the beginning here at the top. I did like it. It's not without its problems. I think I give it an 8 out of 10 on my anime list, which is maybe a little overpraising it. It's probably more a 7 out of 10, like a solid good. But I ended up giving it a slightly higher score just as my appreciation of anime from this era, and just in my appreciation of the animation in particular, which is something I would. Should we just highlight that straight away? The animation in this is really, really good. It's got the same character designer from Vision of Escaflowne, which I didn't initially actually recognise. I thought it was the Berserk character designer for a brief second before I had to double check. I was like, it can't really be that, surely, because obviously the Berserk manga's been going on for ages, and I feel like it's just, I recognise the character designs, and weirdly, I think it was just one of the characters, like the cleric in particular, was one of the characters that looked like he was from Berserk. Pretty much just sort of the way his face was designed, but yeah, I ended up looking it up, and yeah, it's totally the character design from Escaflowne. So really nice fantasy looking characters, and yeah, it's basically a mix of, like, shall we say, Dungeons and Dragons and Lord of the Rings to some degree. The Dungeons and Dragons thing is really, I mean, I've never played D&D. It was just not something that my friends ever did. I would be interested in it. I think it sounds fun. Like, it's certainly a very nerdy thing, but I think it sounds like a bit of fun. But anyway, one of the things I definitely noticed straight away was just the archetype, like, characters. So straight away, within like 2 minutes, I was like, okay, so there's a heroic hero slash knight, a sage, a cleric, no, not a sage, sorry, a mage, a cleric, a thief, and an elf, and a dwarf. That is the main crew, and immediately I was like, wow, this is some Dungeons and Dragons ass shit, isn't it? Which is basically literally what I said aloud as I saw the first 2 minutes. I ended up watching it dubbed. The dub is like it's an older dub done by Central Park Media, so I assume it was done in New York. I don't know by who, but yeah, because obviously this is a Funimation release, but they didn't touch the dub, they didn't redub it or anything. It's from the old dub, and yeah, the dub takes a little bit of getting used to. It doesn't make the best first impression. I always start with the English dub because I just find it. The main reason is because even though dubs don't tend to always be of a better quality than the Japanese, I prefer dubs because it allows me to focus on the animation more. Because when you're reading subtitles, that's always at the bottom third of the screen, and that is where you put most of your attention the whole time you're watching it. You read a show, and I like to watch a show because I really like animation. So if I can watch something dubbed and the dub is bearable, then I will go with the dub. And yeah, this didn't make the greatest of first impressions. Like the first I don't know, like 10 minutes, as I was saying, like I wasn't totally on board with it. There are some recognizable actors, like for example, D-Lit, the elf, is played by Lisa Ortiz, and who's obviously famous for playing Lena Inverse, and yeah, she's pretty good. But yeah, I wasn't initially but blown away by it, so I did switch to the Japanese for a couple of minutes. Went, no, let's go back. Let's give it the dub more time. And eventually, after about the second episode, I was on board with the dub. It's perfectly fine. It's not a lot different from anything from the era. Like back then, like it's not of a bad quality. It's like totally serviceable, totally fine. So if you're looking for a dub, like yeah, this is an old one, but I think it's perfectly fine. There's nothing stupid in it. Like it seemed to be a relatively straight dub in terms of like the script. Like nothing seemed to be like there's no way they'd say that in Japanese or anything. Like it tends to be pretty normal. So what is the story of Record of Lodoss War? Well, it's basically your traditional fantasy stuff. It's a group of heroes going down to take down going to go and take down a greater evil to save the land. That's basically what it's about. um, but it's not without its issues. The story, I think the story is actually pretty much fine. The problem is they do very little world building, which I find in a fantasy series can be really overwhelming. Like with just the amount of like they just name drop like these cities and I guess like countries to some degree, and like these kings, and just like, and obviously they've all got like these fantasy names, so they're quite hard to pick up, and like there's no English subtitles for the dub, so that didn't help either. So like, but they don't ever show a map of the land. You see a map in the world when the characters are walking around, like talking about certain missions they're going to go on. There's a map on the table, but it's pretty blurry. It's not really distinct in any way. And yeah, you get no map ever shown to you. Like there's a narrator, but he doesn't really do much. Like it's actually quite telling. I think about halfway through the show that he starts saying a few more things every now and then, because at the beginning, in the first like 6 episodes or so, he's just narrating the opening, which gives you a very brief history about Lodoss and what happened in the past that's now pertaining to what's going to be happening in the present in the show. It's quite a lot like the opening in Berserk sort of thing, with the narrator at the beginning of Berserk. And it might even be the same voice actor. Actually, it's a pretty similar performance in that regard. But yeah, it really bothered me throughout the whole show that it just made it difficult. So when characters were saying, "I'm going off to Marth," or wherever the fuck it was, like, "I'm going over there to deliver this thing for you," and I'm like, I don't know where that is. I don't like, unless I've hung on to every single word every single character has ever said and have fully understood it exactly when they said it, you'll get lost. At least I did. Like I got lost in the story and wasn't able really to absolutely follow. Okay, I know where those characters are now, and I know where these characters are going, because we don't see the world. We just know that Lodoss is this land. It's just like I forget how they call it, like an accursed land, like due to its history, like it's a troubled land through time, and yeah, you can't place anybody's and in any location, and that became a real problem because there's like these five dragons that are supposed to be a significant part, and it's actually quite funny. I mean, I watched the first 10 minutes of the TV series that is a somewhat remake, somewhat sequel to this OVA, which people don't like. But just in the first 10 minutes of the TV series, it shows you a map and it shows you little banners under the characters to introduce them to you. So this is Ashram, this is someone else, and it's just like immediately I feel like they were recognizing some of the faults with the OVA. So I felt like that was a significant thing that they did that for the TV series, and sort of like almost rubber stamps my opinion on that, like being a problem that you can't really place anybody. But the main crew, like the Dungeons and Dragons type crew, the elf, the hero, and all that, they're really good. They become much quite likable. They're not going to be to everyone's taste, I think, and I guess, and again, like some of the performances will be hit and miss for some people, I'm sure, but they're fun. Like there's some light humor, some light romance, and just some good like fantasy adventure throughout this. And like the first, it's a bit slow paced. Actually, you won't actually fully know what the plot of this show is really going to be about, because like for the first 6 episodes, it tends to just be setting it up, and it doesn't really feel that way. You feel like this is what it's going to be about, okay, and it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's over, like about halfway through, and then you go, oh, okay, well now what? And then it goes on to this almost second half, like second chapter, and it's pretty good. Like as I said, like I got lost, but for the most part, the main thread I was just about able to follow in terms of the story beats of it. And even when I wasn't, like the adventure, fantasy adventure, and the characters and all that were a lot of fun to be around. And I think the only weak link actually is the main character, or more or less the weak link is his rise, because he starts as like this, like his father was like this famous knight, and in the village where he's from, like his father isn't as well appreciated due to some of the things he had to do as a knight or whatever, something like that. And the son is a bit, happy-go-lucky, wants to follow in the footsteps of his father, and he's a bit of an outcast. And he has this extraordinary quick rise through the ranks, if you will. Like, he goes from one episode to basically being an outcast in his village to the next episode being anointed or whatever as like a knight of the realm, basically, and he's suddenly like this great swordsman, and then he gets like pushed down again later on. It's like, no, like you're still a bit too head fast going into battle and all this stuff, and like you're not actually as good. And then all of a sudden he is again, and it's just sort of, that was a thing that sort of bothered me, like his ridiculously quick rise. Like there's for example, like as I say, he's like an outcast in a village, and then like 2 episodes later, he's standing by the king as the king like basically like talks to a massive army from the balcony of his castle, and he's standing right next to him, and it's like, okay, like what the hell? What's he doing there? And it's like when they're doing like the mission objectives, like the battle planning, and he's at the table along with like some of the other characters have only just joined. Like there's a couple of mercenaries that join the crew about halfway through the series, and they're at the table as well, and it's like, this seems a bit like, come on, like this is these are kings and like army chiefs, I guess, or whatever, like talking to each other around the table, and it just seemed a bit, yeah, like he shouldn't really be there, not yet. And so yeah, his rise through the ranks a bit quick, but man, we're already 12 minutes in, holy crap. Yeah, I recommend it. Like I said, I've like criticized it a bit, but for the most part I really enjoyed it. Oh yeah, that was one thing I really wanted to talk about. The animation, wow. Like, obviously I've seen a lot of OVAs, and as a result I've seen a lot of anime from this period, even if it's not always TV stuff. Like I've seen a lot of OVAs and some movies from this period. This is a looker. I say character designs, Escaflowne guy, really great, but just the animation, and this is obviously amplified by the fact this is on Blu-ray and this is my first experience. But just some of the details they go into, like I'll use one example just to explain the whole thing, I guess. But there's a sequence where our hero, the knight, he's got a stupid name like Pan or something, and Deedlit the elf, confronted by like this evil mage. And I think it's Deedlit, she like uses like this, because she being an elf, she's like able to communicate with like these fairies that seem to be in every single living thing in the realm or whatever. And I don't know if that's exactly what she does, but she like basically makes this like water fairy come out or something. I think it's her that does it, and like the animation of it is it slowly just comes to, it's not slowly, it's fast, but it comes to life, and you see all the little sparkles of water, and it goes floating towards the mage, and as it gets to the mage it like explodes almost, or like splashes around him in this orb. And I was just watching that, I was like, wow, that looked amazing. And it's one of the things I really appreciate, and it's one of the things I really appreciate about old anime, especially like the cell painted anime. Like, especially when you get stuff like, there's this volcano that ends up erupting, and well, something to that degree. I won't go fully into it. And like, there's like the smoke coming out. Now they use like a still image, while in a modern show they wouldn't. Like, they would just have the mountain and an animated version of like the smoke coming out of the volcano, mountain, whatever. But in this one, it's a still image. But because it's a still image, you get this beautiful painted thing, and that's another thing that's through the show. Like these. Like, yeah, there's still images, but they look incredible, especially on Blu-ray. And the backgrounds look amazing. As I said, the animation is really, really good. Soundtrack is memorable, but not amazing, I guess. Like, there's some certain elements, mainly because they keep using them throughout the show. There's like certain themes that could prop up with the BGM background music that are good, like traditional fantasy fare, nothing incredible but good stuff. One quirk of watching this dubbed is that the opening is in full English, given the age of the dub, and so is the ending. Now, somewhat controversially, I think I prefer the English for both, and this could be just because this is my first experience and that's what I chose to listen to, but I did compare to the Japanese, like on episode 2 I think. I decided I'll check out what the Japanese opening ending sounds like, and I switched it when appropriate, and yeah, it just didn't have the same oomph. Like there's like, because they're like power pop records, I guess, like, well, not really. Yeah, they're just like, there's a good upbeat tempo to them, and like the ending theme especially I love. Like it gets to this bit where Delia is standing in the lake with a horse, which coincidentally I don't think she ever, oh no, she does ride her own horse a couple of times. Normally she rides on the back with the knight, but yeah, she does actually ride her own horse. Anyway, whatever. Yeah, she's standing in the lake with the horse, and that's when the I don't know, chorus kicks in or something in the ending theme in English, and it's just really good. I really love it. I might actually, I'll put a link in the description to the ending theme in English. I highly recommend listening to it. It's really cool. But yeah, I think that'll be it. This is a bit. I talked for way too long. But yeah, this is like the first of what I kind of want to do with these, which is, it's just my general reaction. It will be long-winded, like no editing. Like it's just like, here's what I thought of it after watching it, and yeah, it's just, I don't want to do like proper essay like reviews because I just will never be happy with them. I don't think I wouldn't say I'm not capable of doing that. I just don't want to put in that time and effort because I don't think the reward I'll get in terms of like people actually listening to that is going to be any substantial at all, and I'd rather just do it this way. It's much more fun to do it this way because this is more of an excitement thing. It's just like, yeah, I just watched it, and here's what I liked, and here's what I didn't like. You know, I'm just passionate about it rather than, you know, like monocle whiteboard behind me. And it's like, okay, this is what I liked, this is what I didn't like, this is why I didn't like it, and why you shouldn't like it either. It's like, no, I just want to tell you what I think. And if you guys want to take any, like, most of you have probably seen it, it's a classic, I just never got around to it, but yeah, it's just a whatever. That's my opinion on Record of Lodoss War, and that is all this video, these type of videos are ever going to be. So yeah, I've been Blaze, thanks for watching, and I will hopefully see you soon for some anime pickups, and maybe more videos like this, hopefully, if you like this one, although hopefully shorter. Anyway, yeah, I'm Blaze, thanks for watching, I'll see you next time.